All right, Silas. So, yeah, you guys, today we're going to be talking about the government contracting and how companies that you probably don't even think sell to the federal government, to the state, local municipalities, and whomever, right, in the government space. And so, and one thing I wanted to say too is because we had a conversation the other day with some partners, and they are used to dealing in the commercial side of the business and in the private sector, and so they weren't aware of how the government space works, and so they were talking about some of their rates and how their rates are pretty much standard across the board when they deal with commercial and the private sector. But I was explaining to them that government is totally different. Even the federal, the state, local municipalities, those are all different because a lot of times where you may have a set rate for yourself for what you provide, it doesn't work when it comes to bidding on a contract, if that makes sense. So basically, I'll give you an example. If we sell 10 beds to some commercial accounts or private pay, someone who wants to purchase them out of pocket, then the rate is going to be different than what we charge the federal government because the federal government has what's called lowest price acceptable and also more the responsible party as well. But mostly, a lot of times, what they're looking for is the lowest price acceptable. Okay. So in that aspect, you wouldn't charge them what you would charge someone else. You might charge them lower, you may charge higher. It just depends on what they're asking for specifically in the scope of work. Okay. So, but just keep that in mind because, some people think, oh, I can just charge them the same thing that I charge um, someone else. Well, their specs may be totally different, right? It may be similar to what you're charging, what you're used to selling, but the specs could be different, which may the price may go down, it may go up. It just depends on. But if you're going to provide any type of service, whether it's a product or service to the government, and that being federal, state, local municipalities, just be aware that your pricing may need to change. Okay, it could be based on your research and what was paid before from an incumbent and all those different things. And then also, just to share with you guys too, as I know a lot of people has this myth that only the government only sells to what like Lockheed Martin, some of these larger agencies, but Amazon sells to the government, Tesla has contracts with the government, Microsoft, Apple, I mean to name a few. That's just a few. So the services and products that you may have right now, you may be able to provide to the government and you don't even realize it, but you probably can. And so, and especially if you are a service type of person, if you offer services, then you really could probably do really well because with services, you're not subbing the work out. You're doing it yourself in house, right? So when you're doing things yourself, then you have a more negotiating power and pricing power, if that makes sense. So what would you say to that, Silas?
Yeah, so what I would say to that is, it's a very eye-opening because a lot of times what you normally think of is that for these companies to get really, to the size of where they are, you
Yeah.
normally think that, they got there primarily because they were just doing B2C, business to consumer, and they just have a good number of investors that believed in their vision. And, then after years and years of doing the same thing and being innovative in the market that they're in, that now they are who they are. But actually, when you dive deeper into this government contract world, you actually start to notice that the contracts, a lot of times one contract helped these companies get to where they are now. So I always say that government contracts, if like literally one contract can change the whole trajectory of your business.
Yeah.
Just one, right? And of course, it depends on, if you're the one primarily doing most of the work, right, in-house. That's why I would say it's really powerful. Is, for example, if you're someone where you are creating the said product, you are the one creating the service yourself, you're not really using too many subcontractors, everything is within your own roof, then that's especially when it happens when you see with these massive companies like the Amazons, the Teslas, things like that. Even some technology companies like Dell Technologies recently just won a $9 billion contract, things like that. So it starts to you start to see that, wow, it's actually the government which is giving these companies the amount of pricing power and buying power and spending power that they have, so that when they then go back to consumer, they're able to, provide better products. But also from a company standpoint, it makes the company a lot stronger because they're well diversified. So if the economy is up and down, which it is, you can always rely on the government because the government is recession proof essentially. No matter what's going on, they're always going to have the funds to be able to buy said product.
So true. So true. Again, it helps stabilize our business. Back in 2023, there were some changes and pivots going on, and it literally helped us stabilize our business. And I know that you're probably thinking, like, well, you guys do medical equipment and consulting. True, we do. And so, but we were still able to diversify and add some other things to be able to provide to the government. And literally, so it's one of those things where if you can provide the service or the product, and we like to kind of focus on things that we have knowledge about, but that doesn't say that you, I mean, it's up to you to feel like you might see something you think, I can learn that and I could do that. And I could provide a service for that. Then you can go for it, right? So it just depends on what you can provide and what you feel you have control over. When we first started doing contracts, we were trying to get stuff that was like not making a lot of sense, but you never know till you try. Like we were going after like what tractor trailers, things like that. And so, but we quickly found out that that's not our lane. And not to say it's not your lane, but it's just not our lane. And so, and that's okay. So we kind of stay within where our wheelhouse, where what we can do. We project management, um, you know, um, call service centers and, staffing, things like that, that that we have affiliations with companies and partners. That's the type of stuff that we kind of stick it. That's our what we consider our wheelhouse. And so you may be doing something out there. You maybe have janitorial. You might have a janitorial company. You may have a security company. We have a medical equipment business, right? And for us, there's different layers to what we do, right? When it comes to medical equipment and consulting and training and things like that, right? So we have, our when it comes to our product line, it's huge to a point because we do have access to those things. But you don't have to be already in that to do that, right? If you can partner with a company, become a distributor, or you're already doing that service, then you're already in it, right? You already have the business, you already established. At that point, you just need to, at that point, make sure you register for the sam.govs for your state, for your local municipalities and all those things, right? So, down to training, consulting. You may be a consultant for something, you don't know. Marketing, graphic design, IT support, call centers, as I mentioned earlier, landscaping. So we see a lot of landscaping contracts, food service. So the list goes on and on about what they are looking for and what they're, again, you just look at the scope of work, understanding your next codes and so, knowing how to research it with sam.gov. usspin.gov is really good too. And we'll, as we keep going, we'll go into that and kind of talk about that more. With usspin.gov is really good because you're able to see what people won before in comments. That's where a lot of your research comes from, and which is really awesome. Prior awards and all those type of things. So, what would you say to that, too, Silas?
Yeah, so I would say is, it's there's a lot to learn in it. The good thing I like about government contracts is that it's very big. So
No.
there's so many different contracts out there. Like there's so many contracts out there. And actually I said this in the previous call a few weeks ago, is that there's so many contracts that a lot of times government agencies don't even get the responses.
Yeah. So
When
true.
you think about that, so it's like if you're someone out there and you're, trying to take things off with the consumer, if you add the government as your consumer, then essentially you now have more stability. Like I said, you can get those larger contracts.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's very, very good.
Yeah, diversifying. We talk about diversifying your business, and that's something that, we had to do. Like, and I think a lot of companies were sometimes we fall into this thing that this is all we're going to do. And if that's what you're doing and it's working for you, then, that's good. You don't need to add anything else. But we learned quickly that in a time where, yeah, we were good too. And then some things shifted with one of our marketing tools that we were using was purchased, right? And then when it got purchased, it kind of affected our sales, and so we had no control over that. But we quickly learned that we will never ever be stuck with just one stream of income. And so customer service, consumers, it may be busy at one point. You have a lot of consumers coming in shopping with you, and then all of a sudden things could dry up, things change, economy, all type of things happen. So that's we are a true believer that you have to be diversified in your business. And so I know a lot of companies, a lot of small businesses out there, you're thinking like, oh my God, like, what, how do I go about doing that? Well, we're here to share it with you, through this free school of just communicating, and we put information in through the week, and then on the weekends, mostly Saturdays, we try to jump on calls to have these to do Q&A where you can ask questions and things like that. And it's pretty cut and dry, and we're teaching from a perspective of what we're doing right now. So this is not we what we think we're doing. No, we're actually in it right now. We're doing contracts right now. We have awards right now. We're working on right now, but we're also running our business at the same time. And so it is definitely out there for people. And I just wish that, because I know a lot of times companies are struggling. And as we know, the percentage of, I think, what is it, 14 for less than 14% of businesses, of all businesses in the United States, don't even make $100,000. So that tells us that we have that there's, there, that right there, that's not a lot. If you think about it, right, as a business and you're making under $100,000 a year, then you definitely probably want to be thinking about adding things on to your business to try to help, grow your business and scale your business. And that's what we've done. And it has been a help. Now, does it happen overnight? Absolutely not. It's a lot of work that goes into it, but it's doable and it has been working. And so you have to do add different things in your business that's going to help you diversify your business where you can have income coming in. If something is slow, then something else is coming in on the side. And so don't sleep on government contracts. And I know that, it's a lot of people out there talking about government contracts and things like that. And I think sometimes people just like, I don't know if I want to do that, if it's really working, if it's real. It is real. Our business
Yeah.
is real and we do real contracts. So no fluff here. So yeah, go ahead,
One
Silas.
thing I would like to add too is the main thing what's good about government contracts is the ability to diversify.
Yeah.
So similar to what I said in a previous video where
Hmm.
I was talking about like once again, going back to these companies on how what they've done, how they've been so successful for so long is that they didn't just focus on one thing. They didn't get they're not generating revenue from just one lane. They've
Yeah.
pretty much diversified themselves across multiple services and product types to where they can always consistently be doing transactions. So
Mhm.
as the market shifts and changes, which it will, they're able to utilize government contracts to kind of have that consistency. But I would even say too, even with government contracts, like I said, you have to bid and win. So in those times where you might not have won a contract, you still want to have something else that you can rely on other or multiple other things you can rely on as well. So that way, when you're still trying to win the next contract, and it says hit and miss, you're still able to scale and succeed with your business. So I would say the number one thing that is very good is diversification. Like you want to diversify your company as much as possible. Of course, not saying like you need to have, nine different business types, right? They're not associated. But if you have one company and you find different ways to monetize different products and services, whether it's rentals, sales, a mixture of both, demos, doing events, things like that, you have all those things on top of government contracts. Government contracting becomes a great asset because now you're not relying on the government contract 100%. But when you do get a contract, it just helps your business scale even faster. So I would say that government contracting, it's amazing, but the first step is you do want to have um, some type of income coming in a different source so that you're not bidding out of desperation. Because once again, the government contracts is not a get rich quick type of thing. It's more of, get rich for sure, as I would say, or as one of my mentors would say,
Yes,
get
I'm
rich for
saying, yep.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, so he would say that that's his phrase is get rich for sure, not get rich today, but get rich for sure. Now, once again, there things do happen, right? Things some depending on your situation, depending if you're in the right place at the right time, offering that exact product at that particular time that no one else was probably offering, then that one contract in that time, you can just hit a jackpot, like hitting the lottery, and you're off to the races, right?
Yeah,
That's happened, right? But generally, though, you do want to have something going on already. Like I said, if you just have a job, it's good for people who, if you have a job or something stable, then you start getting into government contracts and you start submitting those bids, 20, 30 bids or whatever amount you want. And now when you win those contracts, now it's an add-on.
yeah,
Right. And so that's what
yeah.
makes it so powerful. So I would say the number one thing for this particular session today is really honing in on the power of government contracts, how it can improve your situation, but more so how it helps diversify a lot easier. Because essentially the government contract process is pretty easy. All you really do is go on those portals, find what product or service do you want that you know that you can provide or you can get to provide, and you fill out the paperwork, put the quote down, and submit the bid, and just see what happens.
There you go.
It's
Well,
really
just
easy.
make sure that
So
you can provide the service.
yeah, so as long as you can provide the services, right? As long as you can provide the services, and guaranteed though, that's one thing is when you do submit a bid, you want to know for a fact that you can fulfill the contract, even if it starts snowing outside, you can still
Oh,
fulfill
yep.
that contract. So that is very important when you do submit the bid, right? Another thing too, though, to know about contracts as well is that when you send the quote, they're going to hold you to that quote that you sent. So you can't come back later and say, oh, actually, I didn't see this. It's actually this amount. So you can't change pricing after you've won the contract. So whatever price you gave them, that they're going to hold you to that. So that's also why it's so important to be mindful. And that's why this school is going to be very good because we'll tell you guys about different, ways to do that so you can make sure pricing makes sense and things like that. So that way you don't run into a situation where maybe some unforeseen happens and now that slashes your profit entirely. So now you're working for free. So so there's a lot of things you can learn, but once you learn these different skill sets, then contracts become very easy. Like I
Mhm.
said in the last video, government contract is a lot easier now with the assistance of AI. So if you're using any AI, whether it's Perplexity, Gemini, ChatGPT, and other
Wow.
AIs, Claude, all these types of AIs, they're very useful because now like you can literally just upload the whole entire contract file into ChatGPT or into one of the AIs, and you ask it specific prompt questions about, can you break down the scope of work for me? Can you break down these different things, right? These different facts that you need to know, like statement of work, scope of work, where is this contract going to take place? Where is it located? Based on this, especially if you've already been working with AI, you told AI what your product and services and what your goal is also. The AI can help you evaluate the contract. So literally now, like for me, what I do is I'm able to look through like 10 different contracts in 5 minutes. Mainly because what I'm doing is, especially I already know what to really look for just on the surface side to see is this something I should spend time on and go deeper into or just move on and pass. And so by uploading that contract to the AI and I asked the AI, okay, what is the scope of work? What are they asking for? Is this a product service or is it a product slash service? Or okay, they want the product, but also they want installation, things like that. Or is this a total service contract? What type of contract is this? Where is it located, right? So I get to get all that information in seconds, and I can just evaluate myself and see, you know what, is this something that I can spend time on, or is it something I move on from? And then you go ahead and do that, and then it's like, oh, I can do this. So now I continue go deeper into the contract with the AI, getting deeper information. Maybe is there, and then I ask the AI, is there any information on this contract that is very important, like important details? Because a lot of times they do have important details that
Mhm.
they want, right? Like how they want the contract, how they want the product to arrive, you know, different things like what a person should wear when they arrive to the facility, different things like
Yep.
that is very
Yep.
important as well, right? So you want to have all the information, but the good thing is that AI can help you find those things. So instead of you doing it the old school way where you literally sit down and read through 50 different pages, 50 long pages with giant paragraphs, and you're kind of just losing a lot of mental energy, you can use the AI to help assist you on that to move faster. So it's really, really good right now to do government contract, especially with technology the way it is with AI. It makes it a lot easier, a way more approachable. I even use AI for certain acronyms. When filling out the contract, you can ask the AI to help break down certain acronyms, like, certain things. They say, oh, this particular code, right? Then you could ask the AI, what does this code mean? The AI would give you the definition of it. And then now you know, oh, okay, I can get the right code now, right? So all these different things help with make sure that you submit a quality bid. Another thing I would talk about too is when you do government contracts, like what my mentor said, what Desmond said, is that there's like the shotgun approach and then there's the sniper approach, right? So of course, and once again, it's based on what you do, what product or service you do, right? And if you want to do the middleman approach, consultant, there's different ways you can be in the government contract world. But specifically though, when it comes to submitting bids, there's really two ways to do it. Either you can do the shotgun approach, right, where you just submit hundreds of bids in 1 week and just hope one of them falls through, or you can be more calculated and do more like the sniper approach where you actually, do the market research on the contract. You probably look at different portals based on what you know you want to do, right? So instead of you kind of just being that person like what you were saying earlier about, bidding on tractors and things like that when you know nothing about tractors, right? And so I would say too is when you bid certain contracts, especially these bigger contracts, it's very good to know the product that you're dealing with, right? Or if you have a subcontractor that knows what they're doing. So if you don't know the product as the prime, but you may have certain certifications, or things in that nature, but you're working with a subcontractor, hopefully you want to make sure that subcontractor knows what that product or service is when they're doing the work for you, as far as the logistics side goes. So there's a lot of different things, but I would say those are the core main things that I just wanted to talk about because uh, that's essentially just to simplify, that's essentially the process of government contracting.
Yeah, that was good, Silas, because just and those are just like the basics, but it's important tips, right? Because I think sometimes people think, and then people who do want to do government contracts, they hear and they think it's just something you can just jump into and do, and it is, but you just got to be strategic too, and you have to be attention to detail. When Silas talk about using AI to pull the information, look at the scope of work and break it down for you, that's all well and good. You do that, but you also have to remember too, you still need to be deep, read it thoroughly, go back over that just to see, maybe pull out some pointers, or have a list of things that you want to add, right? to what to look at, and we'll share that in our school too. Like we'll have a list of things that to you when you do have AI pull it, what you're going to ask it to do, what items do you need it to have it look for, so that you don't miss anything. Because remember, AI is still it's still AI, right? While it's wonderful and it's good, you still want to make sure you don't miss anything. It can miss something. I mean, in a proposal, you even have like font. They want the font a certain way, right? So will AI pull that for you? You don't know. So those are some of the questions that you want to be able to ask it, because if you don't ask it, you might not get the answer, right, Silas? Because I mean, we use AI, and I know there's things I've asked it and it left out something that was important, but because I already knew what I was working with, and this is in on the commercial side, the private pay side, and all that. If you pull it, if you say something and then you don't ask it specifically, it's only sometimes going to give you what you're asking for. So because I've already worked on a certain project or something, I already know like, oh, I need to ask that question, right? But so you want to still just don't, you can work with it. It's work at it's like a teammate, right? It's like a partner. You guys working together, you looking at things together, and that's how you have to look at it so that you don't miss anything. And then you put all this work into it, and then all of a sudden the fun is off, right? Something just that simple.
Yes, and
Simple to
that's
us, but it's not simple
yeah.
to who wants it. Okay.
Yeah, and
So,
that's the thing, right? Going back to what I was saying earlier about those details, right? Like, font, how the package is supposed to be submitted. Sometimes they'll say, I want the package by mail. Now,
yeah,
I haven't really seen that too many times, which is good because I mean, sending something by mail is
stateside,
kind
you do
of,
that.
interesting, but there are contracts like that where they say, no, we don't want an electronic email version of the contract. We want you to literally print out all these pages or just send one piece of paper with the quote and that's it. Right.
Mhm.
So it just depends on. So that's why, once again, AI is very good because it can help you kind of find that stuff that you probably wouldn't miss if you were just doing it or you're just reading through 50 different pages. Well, the chance of you kind of skimming over that is very high, especially on some of these contracts that are like 30, 20, 40, sometimes even 100
Tiny.
pages or 90 pages, right? So large, large files, right? But the good thing is you can upload those files to AI. AI can break that down, find all that, right? And so what happens is that, when you do that, now you have the proper information. Like, oh, okay, I know. Like you can ask AI, okay, well, is there anything dealing with how I'm supposed to submit this contract, right? Is there anything dealing with the font? Like, how do they want the contract to be submitted? And you'll go to that section to pull
Mhm.
that information, and it'll break everything down to a point where you can understand it. And then there you go. Right.
Yeah.
So once again, saving hours. So even the process of you filling out the contract has now gotten a lot easier because now you have key information that you're able to get in seconds, opposed to you kind of missing it because you were sitting down and reading the whole entire thing like a book, right? So very, like I said, right now with AI, I would say it's the ultimate tool. It's the ultimate tool with the contract process for sure. And you know, even when it comes to finding companies, like I've had AI where it gave me companies to call based on what
Yeah.
the contract was. So I said, can you give me a list of companies that specialize in this product? And it gave me the information. I was able to make contact with them, and I was able to get a quote, a solid quote, and I was able to bid the contract. And that was all done in a matter of 2 days,
Yeah. So,
right?
so it's out there. You can
So it's
do it.
out there.
Anybody can do it. Literally,
Yeah,
anyone
anybody
can
can do
do
it.
it.
Anybody can do it. Yeah.
Anybody can do it. It is out there for people to get, I just would like to say that if you are struggling, if your business is struggling and, or you feel like, oh my God, you got pressure going on, not to say that it's going to come in overnight and save you, but you definitely got an option. You do have options out there, just to let you know. Okay. And no matter where you live at either, like you in the United States, we have, they do government contracts in Canada. I mean, there's different things. Of course, there's a way you have to register and all that kind of stuff, but it is out there. Things are out there to help people and try to figure things out and all that good stuff. So if you guys want, join our school. It's free. It's kind of like different names, like the chapter, second chapters is one. And then, and it's kind of geared to what, when we started this, we was more geared for helping caregivers, widows, And then, of course, entrepreneurs or people who have a business that they want to, add something else onto their business. They need to try to scale their business. They want something else to add on to diversify their business. Or you just want to start a business and you got time. You may be retired and you like, I just need some extra income, no pressure, whatever. But I know, with caregivers out there, a lot of them have given up their careers. A lot of them, in the evening night time when your loved one is down at that point and you're trying to figure out, like, hey, is there something else I can just kind of add on? There's something maybe I can get my mind wrapped around so I'm not so, just give you hope to something else, maybe to add on to what if you have time, what have you. And that's the great part too. There's no time. It's available 24/7. There you can look for contracts any time of the day, any time of the night, it doesn't matter, and all those kind of things like that. So that's one of our focus because we work with a lot of caregivers and a lot of families have given up a lot when it comes to caregiving and the finances and things like that. So that was one of our approaches. And then as a widow, for widows too. I've been a part of widow groups and I've seen people talk about, they're starting over and what are they going to do now? All these different things, right? So anything that can help people to try to, get started or help them figure it out, that's what we offer. So join our school and, and then just come in and share some information and we all just trying to learn and grow together. All right, you guys. We'll see you guys next time. Have a good one. Bye bye.